Have you ever wondered why, out of all the words Jesus could have chosen to describe God, Creator, King, Judge, Almighty, he consistently used one simple word, Father? What if I told you that this wasn't just a beautiful metaphor or religious poetry, but rather the unveiling of a truth so profound that once you truly understand it, your entire relationship with the divine will never be the same again? Most people have heard this word thousands of times in churches, prayers, and religious teachings, yet nobody has ever taught them what it actually means, and more importantly, what it reveals about who you really are. Think about your own prayer life for a moment. Has this ever happened to you? You find yourself in a desperate situation, and you pray with all your heart, pleading with God to intervene, to help, to fix what's broken in your life. You pray like someone standing outside a locked door, hoping that someone on the other side might hear you and decide to open it. You bargain, you promise to be better, you explain why you deserve help. Sound familiar? This is how most of humanity has approached prayer for centuries, as beggars petitioning a distant deity, hoping our words might somehow reach heaven and convince God to care about our struggles. But here's what nobody taught you. Jesus never prayed like this, not once. He never begged. He never pleaded his case. He never tried to convince God of anything. Instead, he spoke with the quiet confidence of someone who knew something the rest of us had forgotten. When he called God Father, he wasn't using a religious title. He was revealing a reality, a relationship, an identity that changes absolutely everything about how we understand ourselves and our connection to the divine. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might completely transform not just how you pray, but how you see yourself in this universe. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now here's the truth that's been hidden in plain sight all along. When Jesus used the word Father, he wasn't describing a distant God sitting on a throne somewhere in the clouds, occasionally paying attention to human affairs. When the mood strikes, he was pointing to something far more radical, far more intimate, far more revolutionary than any religious institution has dared to teach you. He was revealing the fundamental nature of your existence, that you are not separate from the divine source trying to get its attention, but rather you are the very expression of that source, living and breathing in human form right now. This isn't about changing your religious beliefs or joining a new spiritual movement. This is about waking up to what has always been true about you, about recognizing a relationship that existed before you were born and will continue beyond anything you can imagine. The word Father was Jesus' way of pointing to an unbreakable connection, an inheritance, a nature that flows from source to expression without any gap, any distance, any separation whatsoever. What does this mean for you today, in your actual life, with your real problems and genuine struggles? It means that every prayer you've ever prayed as a beggar, every moment you've spent feeling abandoned by God, every night you've wondered if anyone up there is even listening, all of it was based on a fundamental misunderstanding about who you are and what your relationship to the divine actually is. And once you see the truth that Jesus was pointing to, let me show you exactly what Jesus understood that shifts everything. When he used the word Father, he wasn't talking about a parent figure watching over you from a distance. In his consciousness, Father meant something far more fundamental. It meant source, origin, and substance. Think about what that actually means for a moment. When a biological father gives life to a child, that child doesn't receive something separate from the father's own nature. The child carries the father's DNA, the father's characteristics, the father's very essence flowing through their veins. It's not borrowed. It's not gifted temporarily. It's inherited completely. This is the revolutionary truth that Jesus was pointing to about your relationship with God. You are not a creation standing outside looking in, hoping to connect with your Creator. You are the direct expression of the divine source itself. God's own being, God's own nature, God's own life is what you are made of. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. Actually, right now, in this very moment, the breath moving through your lungs, the consciousness reading these words, the awareness experiencing your life. This is divine life expressing itself in human form. You are not separate from the source trying to reach it. You are the source temporarily experiencing itself through the lens of your individual existence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this truth, because here's where most religious teaching completely missed the point. When Jesus made that famous declaration, "I and my Father are one," generations of theologians and religious leaders interpreted this as Jesus claiming something unique to himself, something that set him apart from ordinary humanity. They turned it into a statement of his divinity that somehow excluded everyone else. But that's precisely the opposite of what Jesus was revealing. He wasn't saying, "Look at me, I'm special and different from you." He was saying, "Look at what's true about me and about you and about every human being who has ever existed." This oneness, this unity, this complete merging of divine source and human expression isn't something you earn through decades of meditation, spiritual practice, or religious devotion. It's not a reward for good behavior or a prize for perfect faith. It's the foundational reality of your existence right now, in this moment, whether you recognize it or not. You already are what you've been desperately trying to become. You already possess what you've been searching for your entire life. The journey isn't about arriving somewhere new. It's about recognizing where you've always been standing. This single shift in understanding, this one realization, has the power to transform every decision you make, every challenge you face, every moment of doubt or fear or uncertainty. Because when you truly grasp that you are not separate from the divine source, that you are literally the expression of infinite intelligence and love in human form, your entire relationship with life changes. You stop living as an orphan and start living as an heir. You stop begging and start receiving. You stop searching and start recognizing what has always been present, waiting for you to simply open your eyes and see. Write in the comments, "I am ready to see this truth," if this is resonating with something deep inside you. Let me give you a picture that makes this immediately clear. Imagine standing on a beach, watching the waves roll in. Each wave rises from the ocean, crests, crashes on the shore, and returns back into the water. Now, ask yourself this question. Is the wave separate from the ocean? Is it trying to become oceanic? Is it on a journey to reach the ocean? Of course not. The wave is already ocean. It has always been ocean. It's simply the ocean temporarily expressing itself in wave form. The wave doesn't need to do anything, achieve anything, or become anything to be what it already is. Pure ocean water, momentarily taking the shape of a wave. This is exactly what you are in relationship to the divine. You are not a human being on a spiritual journey trying to reach God. You are God's own life, temporarily expressing itself in human form. You are the ocean taking the shape of a wave called your name, living your life, experiencing this moment. And just like the wave never stops being ocean even for a single second, you have never stopped being divine life even for a single moment of your existence. This is what Jesus meant by calling God Father. This inseparable, unbreakable, eternal connection between source and expression, between the infinite and the individual, between the ocean and the wave. The impact of truly grasping this truth cannot be overstated. There's a profound teacher named Joel Goldsmith who spent decades helping people understand exactly what we're exploring right now. He discovered something remarkable. Every form of suffering, every type of pain, every experience of lack or limitation in human life stems from one single root cause: the belief in separation. When you believe you are separate from your source, cut off from the divine, disconnected from infinite supply and wisdom, you live in a state of constant anxiety. You feel you must struggle, strive, control, manipulate, force outcomes through sheer human willpower alone. You live as an orphan in a hostile universe, desperately trying to survive by your own limited resources. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you join this community. We're exploring these deeper spiritual truths together, going beyond surface-level religion into what actually transforms lives from the inside out. But watch what happens when this fundamental mindset shifts, when you begin to live from the consciousness that God is your actual source and substance, not something distant but the very essence of what you are. Everything transforms. You stop begging because you recognize you already have access to infinite resource. You stop the exhausting effort of trying to make things happen through force because you begin allowing the divine nature to flow through you. Naturally, the constant struggle that has defined your spiritual life suddenly ends, not because your circumstances instantly become perfect, but because you've discovered a truth that changes how you experience everything. This is where the real transformation begins. It's not about learning new techniques or memorizing better prayers or following stricter spiritual disciplines. It's about recognition. It's about seeing what has always been true but somehow remained hidden behind layers of false teaching, cultural conditioning, and religious dogma. The journey isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about removing the illusions that have prevented you from recognizing what you've always been. And once you see it, once this truth clicks into place in your consciousness, the entire trajectory of your life shifts from strain to flow, from fear to trust, from separation to wholeness. Put down in the comments, "I choose recognition over struggle," if you feel this shift, beginning inside you. Here's where this understanding moves from beautiful philosophy into practical reality that impacts your everyday life. Watch how this shifts the entire dynamic of prayer. Most people approach prayer with a specific formula that reveals their underlying belief system. They say something like, "Please, God, help me with this problem. I really need your intervention here. Please fix this situation for me." Listen carefully to what that prayer actually communicates. It assumes God is somewhere else, that divine help must travel from there to here, that you need to convince or persuade God to pay attention to your specific need. It's the prayer of someone who believes in fundamental separation between themselves and their source. But when you genuinely understand what Jesus revealed about the Father relationship, your entire approach to prayer transforms. You're no longer asking an external being to do something for you. Instead, you're recognizing what's already present, already true, already operating in your life right now. The prayer shifts from, "Please come help me," to, "I recognize that divine wisdom is here as my true nature." Do you see the profound difference? One is begging for something you don't have. The other is acknowledging something you've always possessed, but perhaps haven't been conscious of until this moment. This isn't just semantics or word games. This is a fundamental shift in consciousness that changes how you experience every challenge, every crisis, every moment of uncertainty in your life. When you recognize that divine intelligence isn't something external you need to acquire, but is actually your inheritance, your true nature, the very substance of your being, you stop approaching problems from a place of lack and start approaching them from a place of fullness. You stop trying to get something and start allowing what's already there to express itself through you. Look at how Jesus actually operated when he encountered sickness, suffering, or any form of limitation. He never once got on his knees and begged God to reach down from heaven and intervene in the situation, not one time. Instead, he did something radically different. He acknowledged the Father's presence right there, in that exact moment, in that specific situation. He recognized that where God is, wholeness must be. Where divine life is present, limitation cannot actually exist. He understood that the Father's presence wasn't something that needed to arrive. It was already the fundamental reality of the situation, regardless of what appeared on the surface. This is the hidden truth that changes everything about how you face your own challenges. When Jesus healed, he was operating from a consciousness that knew something most people miss entirely. The Father's presence means the child's needs are already met by the nature of the relationship itself. A good father doesn't wait for his child to beg before providing what's needed. The provision flows naturally, automatically, inherently from the relationship. This same consciousness is available to you right now in whatever situation you're facing, whatever challenge has brought you to this video seeking answers. Write in the comments, "Divine wisdom is my true nature," if you're beginning to see prayer in a completely new way. The entire framework you've been operating from needs to shift at its foundation. Think about how you've approached your relationship with God up until this point. Most of us have been conditioned to believe we need to earn divine help, that we must prove our worthiness through good behavior, perfect faith, or desperate pleading. We've treated God's resources like something external that might be granted to us if we ask the right way, believe hard enough, or somehow deserve it. But that's not how a father-child relationship actually works, is it? When a child is born into a family, they don't inherit their father's resources through worthiness. They don't receive provision because they begged convincingly or proved they deserved it. The inheritance flows to them through one simple, undeniable fact: the relationship itself. They are the child. The father's resources naturally, automatically, inevitably belong to them by the very nature of who they are. Not what they've done, not how spiritual they've become. Simply because of the unbreakable bond of relationship that existed from the moment of their existence. This is the revolutionary shift that Jesus was revealing when he called God Father. Divine supply, divine wisdom, divine peace, divine healing, all of it is your inheritance, not your goal. It's not something you're trying to obtain from a reluctant deity. It's something that already belongs to you because of who you are, as the expression of divine life itself. When this truth finally clicks in your consciousness, your entire prayer life undergoes a radical transformation. You move from begging to recognition. You shift from anxious effort to restful knowing. You transition from desperate pleading to peaceful receiving. Here's the secret that changes absolutely everything about your spiritual journey, and I need you to really hear this because it will free you from years of exhausting striving. When you pray acknowledging God as Father in the mystical sense that Jesus meant it, you are not trying to manipulate God into doing something for you. You are not attempting to convince the universe to finally pay attention to your needs. You are not climbing a spiritual ladder, hoping to reach a level where you deserve divine intervention. Instead, you are simply remembering what is already true in this exact moment. Divine life is already flowing through you as your breath, your heartbeat, your consciousness. Divine wisdom is already present as your true intelligence, waiting to be recognized rather than acquired. Divine substance is already expressing itself as your being right here, right now, in this moment as you watch this video. Nothing needs to arrive. Nothing needs to change in heaven for your life to transform on earth. The only shift required is in your awareness, in your recognition, in your conscious acknowledgement of what has always been present but remained hidden behind the veil of separation thinking. This understanding removes the crushing burden of spiritual striving that exhausts so many seekers. You're not climbing toward God. You're awakening to the fact that you've never been separate from your source. The journey isn't about becoming worthy. It's about recognizing that worthiness isn't even a relevant concept when you understand the true nature of the father relationship. Write in the comments, "I receive my inheritance now," if this revelation is landing in your heart. The entire spiritual journey you thought you were on suddenly reveals itself to be something completely different when this truth penetrates your awareness. You've been operating under the assumption that you're climbing a ladder, ascending toward God who waits somewhere above in distant heaven. You've measured your progress, counted your spiritual achievements, worried about setbacks, feared you weren't advancing fast enough. But here's what changes everything. There is no ladder. There's no distance to traverse. There's no heaven to reach that exists somewhere other than where you are right now. You are awakening to a reality that has always been true, but somehow remained hidden from your conscious awareness. You have never been separate from your source, not for one moment, not for one breath. Not even when you felt most lost, most abandoned, most cut off from divine presence. Just as a child doesn't become their father's offspring through years of effort or spiritual practice, but simply is by the very nature of birth, you are God's expression by the fundamental nature of your existence. This is what mystics throughout history have called the secret of secrets. The truth that hides in plain sight, waiting for the moment when your consciousness expands enough to recognize it. Let me share a real story that demonstrates exactly how this recognition works in practical life. Because I know some of you might be thinking, this sounds beautiful, but wondering if it actually changes anything tangible. There was a woman named Margaret who lived with chronic pain for 30 years. Every single day for 3 decades, she prayed desperately for God to heal her, to take away her suffering, to end the relentless physical agony that dominated every waking moment. She tried every prayer technique, attended countless healing services, consulted spiritual teachers and practitioners, read every book on faith and healing she could find. Yet nothing changed. The pain remained constant, and with each passing year, she felt more abandoned by God, more hopeless about ever finding relief. Then Margaret encountered these exact teachings we're exploring right now about the father relationship. At first, she resisted completely. How could she not be separate from God when her body screamed with pain every moment? But something in this truth touched a place deep within her consciousness that recognized it as real. She made a crucial decision that changed everything. She began sitting quietly each morning, but she stopped asking for healing. Instead, she simply acknowledged God as her actual source and life, present right there in her pain, in her struggle, in her body. For 3 weeks, nothing seemed to happen on the physical level. But something was shifting beneath the surface of her awareness. Then, one morning during her quiet time of recognition, she felt something change, not in her body first, but in her consciousness. She experienced the Father's presence not as something outside trying to help her, but as her very being itself. Within 6 months of maintaining this practice, her pain was completely gone. The recognition of the Father relationship produced an immediate shift in her inner state that gradually, progressively manifested in her outer experience over time. Put down in the comments, "Consciousness is cause," if Margaret's story is showing you something about how transformation actually works. Margaret's story reveals something critical about how this truth operates in real life. But let me show you another angle that might resonate even more deeply with where you are right now. There was a man named Thomas who faced business failure for years. His company was hemorrhaging money, clients were leaving, and the financial pressure was destroying not just his career, but his family's security and peace of mind. He prayed constantly, desperately asking God to send customers, to improve his sales numbers, to somehow intervene and rescue his failing business from complete collapse. His prayers felt like shouting into an empty void that never responded. Then Thomas discovered these same principles about the father relationship that we're exploring together. At first, it seemed too simple to possibly work with such serious, concrete problems. How could changing his consciousness affect actual business results and real financial numbers? But he was desperate enough to try something radically different. He stopped begging God for business success and instead began spending time each day recognizing something profound. Divine intelligence was his true mind. Infinite supply was his actual substance, not something external he needed to acquire, but something he already was by nature of his relationship with the Source. This wasn't positive thinking or visualization techniques. This was recognition of reality at a deeper level than surface appearances. Over 8 months of maintaining this consciousness, something remarkable happened. Opportunities began appearing that he hadn't pursued. Connections formed naturally with people he needed to meet. Solutions to problems emerged from unexpected directions. His business didn't transform overnight, but it stabilized completely over time as his inner state shifted from panic and lack to trust and recognition of abundance. Both Margaret and Thomas discovered the same fundamental truth operating in different areas of life. Consciousness is cause, circumstances are effect. When your inner state transforms through recognition of the Father relationship, your outer experience begins reflecting that transformation, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly, but always following the pattern of inner shift preceding outer manifestation. Now, I want to go even deeper into what this means about your actual identity, because here's where the real power of understanding God as Father becomes undeniable. The deepest aspect of this truth is recognizing that you inherit divine nature, not human limitation. Think carefully about what inheritance actually means. When a child is born, they don't inherit just some of their father's qualities. They inherit the full genetic code, the complete nature, the entire essence of what their father is. The qualities flow naturally, automatically, without effort or achievement. If God is your true Father in the mystical sense Jesus revealed, then divine qualities are not something you're trying to develop or acquire through spiritual practice. They are your actual nature right now. Peace isn't something you must struggle to obtain through years of meditation or perfect circumstances. It's your inheritance already present, waiting to be recognized. Wisdom isn't something you lack that you need to gain through accumulating knowledge. It's your birthright as God's expression, already operating as your true intelligence. Write in the comments, "I claim my divine inheritance," if you're starting to see yourself differently through this lens. This understanding about your divine inheritance immediately raises a practical question. How do you actually live from this consciousness in your daily life? How do you make this real beyond just an inspiring idea? Let me give you something concrete you can begin implementing today that will start shifting your entire experience. Every morning before your day begins, before you check your phone, before you dive into your to-do list, before you start worrying about everything demanding your attention, sit quietly for just 10 to 15 minutes. But here's what makes this practice different from traditional meditation or prayer. You're not going to ask God for anything. This isn't about presenting your list of needs or concerns or problems. Instead, you're simply going to acknowledge what's already true in this moment. You might say silently to yourself something like, "God is my life right now. This breath I'm breathing is divine breath. This consciousness I'm experiencing is divine consciousness. My very being in this moment is the Father expressing as me." As thoughts about your problems inevitably arise, and they will, don't fight them or try to suppress them forcefully. Just gently return to the recognition. My Father is present here as my true nature, not somewhere else, not in the future, but right here, right now. Practice this daily for at least 30 days, without constantly judging whether it's working or measuring your progress. You're not trying to make God present through this practice. You're training your awareness to recognize what has always been present but remained hidden from your conscious perception. This is the difference between effort and recognition, between trying to create something new and simply opening your eyes to what already exists. But this practice doesn't stop when you stand up from your morning quiet time. The real transformation happens when you begin seeing differently throughout your entire day. You need to train yourself to recognize that the Father's presence is the invisible reality behind all visible forms, behind every circumstance, behind every appearance. That seems to contradict this truth. When you look at your bank account and see numbers that create anxiety, can you see beyond those numbers to the infinite substance that is your true source? When you look at your body and see limitations or sickness, can you see beyond the appearance to the divine life that animates it? This isn't denial of what appears in your experience. This is recognizing what's real at a deeper level. The visible world. Your circumstances, your bank balance, your health, conditions, your relationship status, all of this is effect. The invisible Father is cause. When you begin living from consciousness of the cause, rather than constantly reacting to effects, you start experiencing life from a completely different dimension. Problems that once overwhelmed you lose their power to disturb your peace. Challenges that seemed insurmountable reveal solutions you couldn't see before. Your entire relationship with reality shifts from fear and control to trust and flow. Put down in the comments, I see the invisible reality, if you're ready to practice this new way of seeing. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, then something in this message resonated with the truth you've been searching for, perhaps without even knowing exactly what you were looking for. That's not coincidence, that's recognition happening at a level deeper than conscious thought. You're here because you're ready to see yourself and your relationship with the divine in a completely new way. I create content like this because I believe these truths have the power to free people from years of spiritual struggle and confusion. If this video brought you clarity, if it shifted something in how you see yourself and God, then hit that like button. It helps more people discover these teachings, and honestly, it lets me know this resonated with you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you join this community. We're exploring these deeper spiritual truths together, going beyond surface-level religion into what actually transforms lives from the inside out. Leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me," if you feel like you were supposed to find this video today. I read every comment, and I love seeing where you all are on your journey and what's landing in your hearts. Before you go, there's another video right here that goes even deeper into how this consciousness actually operates in your daily life. It's the perfect next step after what we've covered today. Click and continue with me over there, because what you've discovered here is just the beginning of understanding who you really are.